Without hyperbole, I can say that AI, true intelligent AI, is finally here, and it's going to change every part of your life and every part of society. So get ready. So I want to start by taking you back to over 20 years ago. I was in college. I was studying abroad in Israel, and I worked at this awesome startup before AI really existed. This sort of multimillionaire Israeli entrepreneur who transformed his huge mansion into this basically AI training facility. His name was Yaki Dunietz. The company was called AI back when you can get insane domain names like that. And he had one room where there were psychologists, linguists, basically providing positive, negative feedback to the system, and another room where you had engineers tuning the inputs of a system. And what they were looking to do was basically pass the Turing test for at a kind of a reasonable level. And I think in the end they kind of got to something like if you really stretch, you would say, okay, it got to maybe like second grade, third grade, but you could tell you were talking to a computer. I mean, it went a really, really long way from, the days of ELISA, where you're like, this is clearly just a rules-based system. It went a long way from all the other rules-based, very domain-specific AI of that day. But it was pretty basic, but exciting, and just was sort of, you could tell at that time it was hitting the technological limits of what they could do. And it was not neural network based at all. And since then, I've done work with the government, projects on AI for all sorts of armed forces and different things like that as sort of short stints. And I've been interested in AI for a long time. But then I went off and I started a couple companies and I went to grad school and invested and all sorts of stuff. And while I was hacking on AI, a side note, check out fast.ai and others. I kept on building stuff for fun. I didn't really have time or capacity to dig in. And then earlier this week, a friend said basically, hey, check out ChatGPT. And it's been on my list. I'm like absolutely behind the curve for doing this. And I started interacting with this damn thing, and my mind was blown. And we talked about it, me and my buddy. This is one of those, he compared it to, this is like one of those, the moment when you first got on the internet, like AOL, dial up, you pick up your phone and you hear a computer communicating. One of those moments. This is really, I really believe we're at a fundamental shift in society now, in AI equivalent to like the Gutenberg printing press, where talk to this thing and it is incredible. You can basically have it write a multi-stage game of any kind. It can design any picture you want. It can give you business advice. It can write an investment memo. It can write a gratitude letter. It could write a sarcastic story. This thing is deeply, deeply, deeply powerful. So somewhere in the last few years, collectively, OpenAI, and I'm sure Google, and I'm sure all the national security agencies, especially China and the US, have started cracking the code. I can't even imagine what's available non-publicly right now. So this thing is so intelligent that I'll include a link to this. There was a Google engineer that basically was working on the ethics responsibility task force at Google and publicly broke their confidentiality code to say, hey, this thing is sentient. And I will include a link to that, the news report and the full transcript. This is a different system than GPT. It's a proprietary Google system, but they're all kind of built on the same technology. Everything will converge to the same place. All these companies will learn from each other. So we're just kind of talking about, and I'm very thankful that OpenAI decided to keep this thing open, to not have this power within one company. That was the intention behind it. So that's for a different article or a different video. But without hyperbole, this will change every aspect of our society. From the obvious things like this will change the number of people you need for any company, whether you're going to need salespeople, whether you're going to need every single knowledge worker job where required someone to be thoughtful, to write copy, to write emails, to engage, you're going to have the world's smartest computer that has likely trillions of times more knowledge than the smartest human being walking the planet has in its head, with infinite training and tuning, um, doing your work, and without hyperbole. Try the thing out, give it a shot, look at it. So I immediately, in starting to play with this thing, I realized I was going through a natural human reaction to any technology. My first step was, oh my God, why am I hearing about this now? Everything's going to fall apart. What does this mean for me? Sort of, and I realized, oh, actually, that's pretty obvious that I would have that reaction. That's, evolution has tuned each of us, some more than others, but all human beings who have survived to this point, to be more fear-based, more survival-based, uh, than sort of more opportunistic. What could go right with this? So my first wave of emotions was, we're totally screwed. Either AI will take over the world, something will happen to my sector, and a lot of those things, at least sort of the big transformational stuff for society, will happen. Not necessarily AI taking over the world, but that's a possibility. Um, but and then I realized this will provide opportunity in every single part of the world. So just like the gun brought horrendous things and the ability for countries to, really be brave and transform the world, just like the atomic bomb brought horrible things, but also the ability to sort of um, have really positive things happen, and to sort of have countries avoid fighting, just like the Gutenberg press brought Mein Kampf, and it brought the vast distribution of the Bible or whatever inspirational book that you love. This has the same potential. And I think it's a really, really interesting time. So expect the nature of warfare to change. Hopefully, we never see this in our lifetime, because that's probably the biggest threat we have, is just humanity destroying ourselves through this technology. But expect your job to change no matter what your job is. Expect our entire world to change. Give this thing a test drive, see for yourself, and then not only go through it, but ask yourself, there's a deeper kind of, call it spiritual question or lens of the world. How are you seeing the world? And what will you make of this opportunity? Once it clicks for you, and it might be right when you check it out, it might be a couple of years from now, when you really see this all over our society. But how will you, how might each of us use this technology for good? How might we both carefully make sure that it's ethically managed and regulated? That's a whole different conversation. Hopefully, we have intelligent regulators that can get ahead of this. I have some doubts, but how might you apply this in your life for good, for the good of your own life, that of your family, your community, your tribe, but hopefully all of humanity. And thinking back, I'm about 40, 41 years old. And I think back 20 years ago, it was like just the conception of the iPhone. Facebook was just getting started. The world we will live in 20 years, I cannot even describe. You will have, everything will be hyper personalized. You'll have movies that are based on exactly what you're looking for. We'll look back and say, wow, we actually only had these movies created by these big studios that spent millions of dollars, and did this thing, had to fly all over the world, and it took years. Or songs, we had this list of songs that you can, kind of crudely put into your own playlist. But now, literally, we will live in hyper personalized worlds. And when you add the metaverse on top of this, it really becomes, I think, a big portion of humanity will eventually be living in some version of Ready Player One. So what will you make of this? How do we take this technology and not sort of hide in a cave and say, oh, it doesn't exist, or wave it off and say, this is not really intelligent yet? But this thing is going to move very, very fast, both transforming our life and then reaching this peak of having AI train the AI itself and start having this exponential growth of intelligence, how will we both protect that, and how will you harness that? How will each of us choose to harness that for the good of humanity? So without hyperbole, this will change every aspect of our world. Mark my words. And how can we all use it for good? Take a look, and I hope this video helped inspire at least curiosity. And as you start engaging with this technology over time, whether you lean into it now or whether it eventually becomes available to you without you wanting to do it, it'll be ubiquitous. How might you use it for the betterment of all humanity? Have a nice day, and I hope whoever needed to hear this message, I hope it got to you.